Help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. In this video, I found a work badge in my wife's purse, but the last name wasn't hers. 3 days later, her boss mysteriously fell and broke his leg after someone moved his office chair. And when I finally uncovered the truth, the betrayal wasn't what I expected. It was 10 times worse. It all started on a quiet Sunday morning. Emma was still asleep, curled up in bed, her face half buried in the pillow, and I was looking for my phone charger. I remembered seeing her toss it into her purse a few days ago after using it in the car. So I figured I'd dig around and grab it without waking her, but as I pulled open the zipper, something odd caught my eye. Her work badge. I wasn't snooping. Not yet, but there it was, her smiling face staring back at me, clipped to a plastic tag with a name I didn't recognize. It said, Emma Cole. Cole? My wife's name is Emma Green. She never changed her name after we got married. She was always proud of keeping her maiden name for professional reasons. But this wasn't a typo. It was a whole new identity. I froze, holding it in my hand, staring at it like it might suddenly explain itself. The photo was new. She had that same haircut she got just last month, and she was wearing the necklace I gave her last Christmas. This wasn't an old badge from years ago. This was recent. I waited until she woke up. Over breakfast, I casually brought it up, pretending to joke about Emma Cole being her evil twin. She laughed, but it wasn't the usual warm laugh I'd heard 1,000 times. It was forced, tight, awkward. She said, "Oh, that? Just a dumb nickname the team gave me after a typo in the HR system." I never bothered fixing it. I nodded, but something didn't sit right. Emma wasn't the kind of person who'd let something like that slide. She was meticulous. Every detail at her desk was color-coded. She ironed pillowcases. She triple-checked her calendar invites. No way would she wear a badge with the wrong name for weeks. Unless it wasn't a mistake. Unless she needed it to be that name. My gut twisted. I didn't say anything else that day, but her laugh, that cold, nervous one, echoed in my head for hours. It was the first time in 5 years of marriage that I genuinely didn't recognize the woman sitting across from me. Something was wrong, and whatever it was, it had only just begun. You're not ready for what's coming next, because in the next chapter, things go from suspicious to downright chilling. Coming up next, a sudden shift in Emma's behavior, a mysterious coffee shop, and a GPS tracker that reveals far more than expected. After the badge incident, something in our house changed. Emma wasn't acting like Emma anymore. She used to hum while making coffee, sometimes dance around the kitchen in her socks, always texting me random updates during the day. Pictures of her lunch, silly comments about coworkers, sweet, can't wait to see you messages. But suddenly, all that stopped. She grew distant, colder. Her phone, once lying face up on the table or tossed casually on the bed, was now always clutched in her hand or flipped over. Screen hidden, she started sleeping with it under her pillow. At first, I told myself I was overthinking everything. Maybe the work badge really was just a weird office joke. Maybe she was just stressed from work, but it got harder to ignore. One evening, while she was in the shower, I saw a preview flash on her screen. It was a text, just a first name, Brian. The message said, "Same time tomorrow? Loved our chat today." Brian. I had heard that name before. He was her boss, or at least one of the top execs at her office. She once called him an arrogant control freak during a rant over dinner. So why was she chatting with him off hours? And why did her phone suddenly have a new passcode? I asked her about it, playing dumb. "Hey, your phone changed. What's the new code?" "Mine's still your birthday, by the way." She smiled weakly and said, "Oh yeah, IT made me change it for security reasons." Lies. Flat, emotionless lies, delivered with that same fake laugh from before. It was like I was living with a version of her that looked like Emma, moved like Emma, but wasn't her. The love in her eyes was gone. She came home later and later, always with excuses. Traffic, extra meetings, someone's birthday at work. One night, I offered to pick her up from the office since it was raining. She texted back, "Don't worry, I already left with Michelle." Michelle? Her coworker who, just a week earlier, Emma said had moved to another department across town. That night, I sat in the car outside our apartment for nearly an hour, thinking, wondering, losing my mind in circles of suspicion and guilt. And that's when I decided I needed proof. So the next morning, I ordered a discreet GPS tracker. It arrived 2 days later. That night, while Emma was in the shower again, I slipped outside, crawled under her car, and stuck it near the rear bumper. My hands were shaking. I felt insane. But I had to know. I had to find out who Emma Cole really was, and what she was hiding from me, because no matter how much I loved her, something told me she was living a life I wasn't part of, and I was done being blind. What the GPS reveals will change everything. You think you've figured it out? You haven't. Keep watching. In the next chapter, a cozy coffee shop becomes the stage for betrayal, and I finally see it with my own eyes. The tracker app showed every movement Emma made. For 2 days, her route looked normal: home, work, grocery store. But on the third day, something changed. Around 3:40 p.m., well before her usual clock-out time, her car left the office parking lot and drove across town. I watched the blue dot stop at a quiet side street, right next to a small, locally owned coffee shop called Birch and Bean. She stayed there for an hour and 40 minutes.
No meetings, no clients, no explanation.
That same evening, she came home with a tired face and a Starbucks cup. She said she was swamped at work and that traffic was a nightmare. She kissed me like nothing happened, but my heart wasn't in that kiss. I already knew she wasn't where she said she was, and I needed to see it with my own eyes. The next day, the tracker showed the same pattern. 3:41 p.m. Emma's car left the office. 3:57 p.m. Stopped again at Birch and Bean. That was it. I grabbed my keys. I drove across town, parked a block away, and waited. I kept my hoodie up and sunglasses on, sitting low behind the wheel, pretending to scroll my phone. I didn't even know what I hoped to see, or not see. At exactly 4:06 p.m., I saw her, Emma. She stepped out of the cafe, holding a ceramic mug. Not a paper cup, not takeaway. She wasn't grabbing a quick coffee. She was settling in, and she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her, mid-40s, tall, clean suit, confident posture. They laughed, not just smiled. Laughed, comfortable. They stood close, too close. She touched his arm when he made a joke. He touched her back when they stepped inside again. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling. I snapped a photo, then another. It wasn't perfect, taken through my windshield, but I knew exactly who he was. That was Brian Hall, her boss, the same man she once described as intimidating and stone-faced. He didn't look so cold now. My throat tightened. For a second, I thought about storming in, saying something, doing something, but I didn't. I sat there in silence, the photo burning in my phone like a confession, because what I saw wasn't just two people having coffee. It was a connection, something I hadn't shared with Emma in months. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself, or the realization that she smiled with him the way she used to smile with me. But this wasn't over. That badge with the name, Emma Cole, suddenly made a lot more sense, and I had a feeling things were about to go deeper than I could imagine. You won't believe what happens when her strict boss suddenly ends up in the hospital, and Emma looks relieved instead of shocked. Stick around. In the next chapter, an unexpected accident opens the door to secrets no one was supposed to know. I stared at the photo of Emma and Brian for hours that night, zoomed in, zoomed out, studied every inch of her expression. The light in her eyes, the soft curve of her smile. She hadn't looked at me like that in months. I didn't sleep. My mind was spinning with questions. Was this just emotional cheating? Was there more? And why did it feel like I was the outsider in my own marriage? The next morning, I tried to act normal. I asked her how work was going, if she had any fun office drama. She shrugged. Same old, she said, pouring coffee. No mention of Birch and Bean. No mention of Brian. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, you never told me much about Brian Hall. Is he still as cold as you said before? Emma paused mid-sip. Her eyes flickered for half a second. That was all I needed. Then she nodded. Yeah, still cold. He's barely even around lately. Lies. She had been with him the day before, but that was nothing compared to what happened 2 days later. It was a Tuesday. I was eating lunch at home when I got a message in our neighborhood group chat. Someone posted a local news link with the headline, "Top executive at Orion Tech hospitalized after mysterious fall in office." I clicked. My blood turned to ice. The photo showed Brian Hall, pale and bruised, being wheeled out by paramedics. The article said he had fallen hard after someone moved his desk chair from behind him. He hit his head, fractured his leg, a potential concussion. The office was investigating. There were no witnesses, no cameras in that wing. I immediately looked at Emma. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, expressionless, until I noticed something strange. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't concerned. She was calm, too calm. I asked, "Did you hear about Brian?" She looked up, blinked slowly. "Oh, yeah. Someone texted me earlier. It's shocking." That pause before shocking dash? That wasn't shock. That was calculation. But then, just when I thought it couldn't get stranger, she smiled. Subtle, quick, barely there, but real. A smile. Who smiles when their boss is in the hospital? Unless they're no longer scared of being watched. Or maybe he wasn't her boss anymore. Maybe the dynamic had flipped. The timing was too perfect. 2 secret coffee dates, a badge with a fake name, a mysterious fall, and now her new confidence. It didn't add up. Unless someone had planned for Brian to fall, could Emma have done something? And if so, why? To end the affair? Or to end something else entirely? I needed answers, and I was done guessing. Because in the next chapter, I dig deeper and uncover digital proof that flips this whole story upside down. What I found in our shared laptop changed everything. Keep watching. This story is only getting darker. The morning after Brian's accident, the energy in our home was eerily calm. Emma seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted. She made breakfast, whistled a tune, even kissed me on the cheek as she passed by, like we were living in some 1950s sitcom. But I couldn't pretend anymore. I needed answers. I waited until she sat down with her coffee, and then I said it. "I know you've been meeting Brian. I saw you at Birch and Bean." Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't flinch. She just set her cup down, slowly, and took a deep breath. "Okay," she said. "That's it.
No denial. No panic.
Just, okay." I waited, my heart pounding. Finally, she looked up. "I wasn't going to lie anymore." "It wasn't what you think," she said. "We never slept together. I swear to you, I didn't speak." She kept going. I was angry. I felt invisible. Brian noticed me. He listened. At first, it was just coffee. Then it became escape. She paused, but I ended it. The day before his accident, I asked her why. Why now? Why stop? Why didn't she just tell me instead of sneaking behind my back? Her answer? Because he wanted more. And I didn't. I told him I wasn't leaving my husband. That word, husband, sounded so hollow in her mouth.
Hier.
Searching her face for truth. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something still didn't add up. I asked her directly, "Did you have anything to do with what happened to him?" She looked down, paused, shook her head. "Of course not," she said. But it came out too fast, too easy. And then, she said something that sent a chill through my bones. Maybe it was karma. She smiled, that same subtle, knowing smile from the other day. It wasn't just a smile of relief. It was satisfaction. I didn't say another word. I just nodded and walked away. But my mind was already racing. If she really did end it, why was there still something that felt unfinished? And if she truly had nothing to hide, why did I feel like I was only scratching the surface? In the next chapter, I open her laptop, and what I find inside completely changes what I thought I knew. You won't believe who the real victim in this story might be. Keep watching. This goes way deeper. 3 days after Emma's so-called confession, I found myself alone in the kitchen late at night, the silence pressing against my chest like a weight. I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head on a loop. I didn't love him. It was just an escape. But something told me there was more, something she still wasn't saying. That's when I remembered Emma's laptop. We had always shared the same devices, same Netflix account, same cloud storage. She never used to password protect anything. I tiptoed into her office, heart racing. The room smelled like lavender and paper. Emma's signature scent. Her laptop sat there on the desk, lid closed, but humming softly. I opened it. No password prompt. She had left it unlocked. Her email was already open. At first glance, everything looked normal. Work updates, team memos, newsletters. But then I saw a folder in the sidebar labeled C. Just one letter, almost invisible. I clicked. My stomach dropped. Dozens of emails, all from Brian, all signed with a single initial. B. They dated back months. They weren't romantic, at least not in the traditional sense. There were no I love US or sexy exchanges, but they were worse. They were strategic. Subjects like end of quarter plan, new leverage, blind spot, control the narrative. It wasn't an affair. It was a partnership. Emma had been feeding Brian private information about other employees, who was cheating time logs, who was slacking, who was secretly applying elsewhere. In exchange, he moved her up the corporate ladder. Fast. Too fast. But in the last few emails, the tone changed. One from Brian read, Emma, this is getting risky. HR asked about the badge name again. We need to slow down. Another from her. I've come too far, you're not backing out now. I have the photos, Brian. Photos. What photos? Then I saw it. An attached zip file labeled insurance. I opened it. Inside were screenshots of Brian in compromising situations, with interns, late night meetings. One even looked like it was taken through a window. She had blackmail on him. My wife was blackmailing her boss, and worse. She was prepared to destroy him if he walked away. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't about love or temptation. This was about power. And Emma wasn't a victim. She was in control. But if Brian had backed out, if he had started resisting, was it possible that his accident hadn't been an accident at all? What else was she capable of? You think you've figured her out? Not even close. In the next chapter, I visit Brian in the hospital, and what he tells me about Emma flips the entire story upside down. You're gonna want to hear this. Don't stop now. I had to see him. I needed to look into Brian Hall's eyes and know what he knew, or what he was too scared to say. It didn't take much digging to find out which hospital he'd been taken to. Orion Tech had great insurance, of course. He was in a private room, guarded by a paper-thin curtain of silence that I was about to tear apart. I told the nurse I was a friend from the company, just dropping by for support. She smiled, nodded, and waved me through. Brian was lying in the bed, his leg in a full brace, one arm bruised, a small bandage on his temple. He looked older than I remembered from the company's leadership team page, more fragile. We locked eyes. I introduced myself, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm Emma's husband. The room dropped a degree in temperature. His fingers twitched slightly against the blanket. He didn't answer, didn't nod, didn't even blink, just stared. I know everything, I continued. I saw the emails, the photos, the badge, the meetings. Brian exhaled sharply through his nose. It might have been a laugh, or maybe just disbelief. Then you already know, he said quietly. His voice was hoarse. She's not who you think she is. I asked him what that meant. He closed his eyes for a moment like he was trying to gather courage, or maybe permission. At first, she was just observant, smart, too smart. She knew who I was seeing behind closed doors. She never judged me, never asked me to stop. She just watched. He opened his eyes again and locked them on mine. Then she asked for favors, said she'd keep my secrets. All she wanted was a little recognition, some advancement. His breathing grew heavier. But when I started to feel guilty, when I said I wanted to come clean, she changed. I asked him to clarify. He shook his head. She threatened to send everything to corporate, and to my wife, and the press. She said I owed her everything, that without her, I was nothing but a mistake waiting to happen. I asked him point blank, did she push you? Did she have anything to do with your fall? His jaw clenched. His voice dropped to a whisper. I don't know. I stood up from my desk and the chair was gone. No one saw anything. No cameras, no noise. But I swear to you, seconds before it happened, I smelled her perfume, lavender and paper, just like the office, just like home. I left the hospital shaking, a storm boiling in my chest. Emma had created a version of herself that no one questioned. The sharp, sweet, capable woman who never raised her voice, but behind that image was someone terrifying, someone who knew how to play the long game, someone who knew how to turn people into puppets. And now, I had to ask myself the most disturbing question of all. Was I just another one of them? Don't look away now. In the next chapter, I uncover a trail of secret payments and realize this web stretches much farther than Brian. And I may be the next one tangled in it. Keep watching, because the betrayal hasn't even peaked yet. After leaving the hospital, I drove around aimlessly for hours. I didn't want to go home. I couldn't sit across the table from Emma, pretending everything was fine, knowing what Brian had just told me. But more than anything, I needed to understand how deep this went. I needed to follow the money, because manipulation is one thing, but blackmail? That leaves a trail. I remembered Brian's words. She said I owed her everything, and then I remembered something else. A few weeks ago, Emma had asked to borrow my laptop because hers was running slow. She said she needed to check something on Venmo for a refund from a coworker. It seemed so casual at the time. Now it felt like a breadcrumb she didn't think I'd ever follow. I rushed home, opened the browser, and pulled up Venmo. Logged in, nothing. Then I checked the saved logins on the browser. There it was, another account. It was under the name E. Cole. I froze, hands shaking. I clicked to log in. No password prompt. The browser remembered everything. The feed wasn't public, but the transactions were there. Dozens, from multiple senders. But one name showed up more than any other: Brian Hall. The payments weren't huge individually. $300 here, $450 there, $1,200 marked as consulting, $900 as therapy, another labeled protection. Altogether, over $22,000 in just 4 months. It wasn't just hush money. It was systematic, organized, almost like Emma was running a business. But here's where it got worse. I started looking at the other senders. One name stood out: Tommy Granger. I didn't recognize it at first. Then I searched him on LinkedIn. He was a senior HR manager at Orion Tech. Why would he be sending money to Emma or to Emma Cole? I went back to the emails, searched Tommy, and there it was, a message chain between Emma and Tommy. Subject line: same leverage applies. She had something on him too. I realized in that moment that Brian wasn't the only target. He wasn't the exception. He was the beginning. Emma had built a network. She wasn't just someone who found an opportunity. She had created the opportunity, cultivated it, exploited it, and worst of all, I started wondering if she had married me for the same reason, for stability, for image, for cover. I was the alibi husband, the background noise, and suddenly, I remembered something else. When we met, she was working as a receptionist, broke, living with a roommate. 3 months after our wedding, she got that first promotion, and everything changed. What if I had been part of the story all along, but never the main character? And what if now, she didn't need me anymore? You think you've seen manipulation? Wait until the next chapter, when I confront her, and find out she's already 10 steps ahead of me. Keep watching. The real game is just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. The discovery of the Venmo account, the emails, the blackmail trail. It all spiraled in my head like a storm I couldn't shut off. Emma wasn't just bending rules. She was orchestrating something much bigger, and somehow I felt like I was standing at the center of it. Without ever being invited, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. So the next morning, I confronted her.
No build up. No pleasantries.
I walked into the kitchen while she was stirring cream into her coffee and dropped her phone on the counter. I know about E. Cole. She didn't look up, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She just said, "Okay, so now what?" That answer. So now what? Hit me like a punch. There was no fear.
No επάλεγη.
Just strategy. I asked her, how long has this been going on? She finally looked at me, eyes calm, calculating. Depends what you mean. The emails? The badge? The money? It's not just about time. It's about survival. I asked her why she needed to do it. Why build this whole secret life behind mine? She walked past me, sat at the dining table, crossed her legs, because people like Brian and Tommy, they build empires on silence. They get away with it. I just made them pay for it.
Ystère here.
So what am I, Emma? Just a pawn in your game. She tilted her head. No, you were the only part that felt real. But you were never supposed to find out. That last line cracked something in me. I had spent months feeling like I was the outsider, the fool, but maybe I had been something worse. The cover story, the respectable husband, the normal life she used to make everything else seem legitimate. I was the shield, and now that everything was unraveling, she didn't need the shield anymore. I asked her, so what now? She stood up, walked over to the hallway drawer, and pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed. She handed it to me. That's everything you need to know. If you ever feel like turning me in, but read it carefully, because if you go down this path, you'll have to decide something for yourself. I opened the envelope. Inside were documents, statements, screenshots, a flash drive, and one printed photo of me with her, smiling, holding hands, but the date stamp was months before we met. It didn't make sense until I flipped it over, written on the back in her handwriting. Nothing is random. I looked up. Emma was already walking toward the door, code in hand. Comp. She turned back just before she left and said, "You were the real target, Daniel. I just made sure you never saw it coming." Then she was gone. But what did she mean? Why me? And what was really on that flash drive? Keep watching, because in the final chapter, the truth is more disturbing than every lie that came before it. This story isn't ending. It's detonating. I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope Emma had left still resting in front of me like a loaded weapon. The photo was burned into my mind. Us smiling long before we were ever supposed to have met. Nothing is random, she had written, and now I was terrified to find out what she meant. With a deep breath, I inserted the flash drive into my laptop. One folder, no password, no name, just a timestamp, the date of our anniversary. Inside, there were video files, documents, emails. The first video showed Emma in a cafe, not Birch and Bean, somewhere else. She was sitting across from a woman I didn't recognize. Older, sharply dressed, with a cold stare and a briefcase. Their conversation was recorded from the woman's side. Like a sting operation, I turned up the volume. "He's perfect," Emma was saying. "Predictable, quiet, clean record, emotionally stable. No red flags. They'll never suspect he's involved." "And the background?" the woman asked. Emma nodded, fully covered. "I've already built the narrative. From where we met to how we fell in love. It'll hold." I stopped breathing. They were talking about me. I clicked on the next file. It was a scanned form, government headers, a clearance application. My name was on it, my job application, to a cybersecurity firm I had applied to 2 years ago and got rejected from with no explanation, except this file had denied due to flagged associate connection. Scribbled across it, Emma had been using me, not just as a husband, but as a tool. I wasn't the alibi. I was the distraction. And the whole marriage, it was a front, a cover story, a perfectly tailored lie. I clicked on one more video, the last. Emma sat alone this time. She looked straight at the camera. "If you re-watching this, it means I'm gone. And you figured out most of it. I didn't want to hurt you, Daniel. I really didn't." Her voice cracked. It almost sounded real. "But people like you don't survive people like me. You trust too much. You love too deeply. You never ask the right questions. You were always going to be collateral." She smiled again, that same devastating, calm smile. "But I want you to know something before it's over. You weren't just part of the plan. You were the plan." The screen went black. I sat in stunned silence. Everything I thought I knew The 5 years of marriage, the quiet nights, the inside jokes, the road trips, the coffee runs. It was all part of a calculated web. Emma never needed money. She never needed power. She needed access, and I gave it to her, voluntarily, lovingly, blindly, and now she was gone.
No trace.
No phone, no messages, just that final message. And one question burning in my mind like fire. Where is she now? And then, the doorbell rang. I stood up slowly, looked through the peephole. 2 men in suits, one of them holding a badge. They weren't police. They weren't from Orion Tech. They were federal, and they were here. For me. What would you do if the person you trusted most wasn't just lying, but building your downfall from the moment they said hello? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this story may be over, but the consequences are just beginning.